Don't forget to check out and grab your copy of our 2 newly released books, Football: A Love Story and What Did Football Teach Me? These books feature over 100 stories from current and former coaches, players, executives, and entertainers from across the football landscape, describing what got them involved in the game, what they love about it, and what life lessons the game taught them. You can find your copy or order your copy from our website at footballgameplan.com/books.
What's up, FCS football fans? I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook with footballgameplan.com.
And I'm Kevin Marshall from AnyGivenSaturday.com.
And we are the hosts of the FCS Wedge presented by AnyGivenSaturday.com.
Check your local listings for station and time in your area.
Kicking off this playoff wraparound in Chattanooga as the Mocs play host to the Fordham Rams, and 2 unique offenses that have one thing in common: outstanding ground games. Fordham has the sensational Chase Edmonds, and Chattanooga's quarterback Jacob Huseman is one of the more dynamic runners in the FCS. Defensively is where I believe you can trust the Rams. You can also trust them in the red zone as well. Look for this one to be a close first half with Fordham pulling away in the second. I like the Rams. Good round 1 matchup between Coastal Carolina and the Citadel, and the Bulldogs enter this matchup fresh off an upset win over South Carolina and bring in a very solid defense. The Bulldogs' option attack is enough to give any defense fits, and Coastal has been very good offensively all season long. Defensively, they're opportunistic and they do a great job in getting off the field on third down. Can they remain disciplined versus the Bulldogs offense? I think at times they will, but I do like the way the Citadel plays defense, and those possessions they'll steal away from the Chanticleers will ultimately seal their fate. I like the Bulldogs. Which defense will show up in the Colgate, New Hampshire game is the biggest question. Colgate won the Patriot League and play a fun brand of football. They're a resilient bunch led by quarterback Jake Melville, who's a dual-threat player, and New Hampshire is also a resilient squad, winning their last 4 games to get into the playoffs, which is the place they are all too familiar with. They're getting it done in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and what's unique about Colgate is that they can play any type of game, up-tempo, grind it out, it doesn't matter, and it's because of that I think they will knock off the Wildcats in an upset. I like the Raiders. Western Illinois travels to Dayton to take on the Flyers, and behind the running from talented tailback Nico Watson, the Leathernecks were able to get their ticket punched to the playoffs. The true task in this game will be whether or not they can finally generate a pass rush. Now, the Flyers' offensive line does leave a lot to be desired in that department, but aside from that, Dayton has performed well on both sides of the ball en route to a 10-1 record, earning their first ever playoff berth in program history. I think defensively is where the Flyers really excel, only allowing 18 points a game and 3.7 yards a rush. Look for the upset here as Western Illinois from the mighty Missouri Valley Football Conference will fall to the Pioneer representative Dayton in a tight, low-scoring contest. Sam Houston in Southern Utah may be the best game of the weekend. The Bearcats have a high-powered offensive attack that forces you to defend every blade of grass. They average 43 points a game, but I'm a big fan of their defensive front led by defensive tackle P.J. Hall, who has 13 TFLs and 7 sacks on the season. Both lead the squad this year. Southern Utah's defense has been remarkable as well. In fact, 3 guys, cornerback LaShawn Sims, safety Miles Killebrew, and defensive end James Cowser, are headed to either the East-West Shrine Game or the Senior Bowl. Even with all that defensive talent, I think the speed and misdirection run game of Sam Houston State with quarterback Jared Johnson controlling the rock will be too much for the Thunderbirds. I like the Bearcats. Another quality matchup in round 1 is Montana versus South Dakota State, and what a difference quarterback Brady Gustafson makes for this Grizzlies offense. The 6'7" signal caller can make any throw on the football field and gives Montana that extra oomph it needs in the passing game. They're facing one of the tougher pass defenses in the FCS in South Dakota State, who has picked off 10 passes this year and only gives up 188 yards passing a game. The biggest key for South Dakota State's offense in this game is, number 1, avoid a complete meltdown like they did last week versus Western Illinois, and number 2, find a way to sustain drives. This is a disciplined team that, outside of last week, doesn't beat themselves, and I think the Jackrabbits will be able to dictate the pace and tempo in this ball game and knock off the Grizzlies. Eastern Illinois battles Northern Iowa, and for Eastern Illinois in this game, it's about their offense and whether or not they can put together a consistent effort versus a very stingy Northern Iowa defense. That's been the Panthers' issue all season long. Their defense is really good, but their offense hasn't been able to bail them out. Now, speaking of a really good defense, the Panthers of Northern Iowa, fortunes changed once their defense got better. Northern Iowa was sitting at 2-4 in the season, and the defense only gave up an average of 10 points a game the rest of the way, all victories, including a shutout win over Missouri State. I like what quarterback Aaron Bailey is doing from a dual threat perspective, and I think he plus that Panthers defense will make it tough for Eastern Illinois. I like Northern Iowa. And finally, William & Mary plays host to the Dukes of Duquesne. And for the Dukes in this ballgame, their biggest challenge will be sustaining drives versus arguably the best defense in the FCS. The great part is that they have a well-balanced offensive attack that's capable of doing so, with wide receivers Chris King and Wayne Capers, along with tailback Rafiq Douglas, who's a threat to score on any given play. The Tribe also featured two amazing tailbacks in Kendall Anderson and Malik Abdul-Sabor, both combined for over 1,900 yards of rushing this season, and the defense is where the Tribe causes fits for all their opponents. They're strong in the trenches and also in the alley. I think they'll do a great job in stifling the Duke's offensive attack en route to a victory and a rematch in round 2 versus the Richmond Spiders.